Hello and welcome to the Romance Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Z and Morgan Brice, and tonight we are talking about all things romance. Before we get into this, let's let our panelists introduce themselves, and I'm going to start with Layla.
Hi, everybody. My name is Layla Reyne. I write queer romantic suspense and contemporary romance. Big into foodie romance, so Valentines is one of my favorite things. So excited to chat tonight. And get to interact with you guys.
And Kathy?
Hi there, I'm Kathy Lyons or Jade Lee. I do historical romance and paranormal romance contemporary, and I'm thrilled to be here. I've done over 60 books, all in romance, so Valentine's Day is a biggie for me.
And Hank?
Hi there, I'm Hank Edwards, and I write gay romance in a variety of genres. I do some contemporary romance. I also do paranormal, quite a bit of paranormal romance and suspense thriller. So thanks for having me.
Hey, happy to have you here. Angela?
Hi, I write romantic suspense. I write pretty gritty love stories because I like the idea that love stories don't have to just be pretty, and scary stories don't just have to be scary. They can coexist. I have one book out with 4 more on the way this year. So
cool. Clay and Susan.
Hey, I am Susan Griffith. This is my husband and co-writer, Clay Griffith. We write historical fantasy, but somehow romance always seems to find its way in because we love characters, and characters just seem to always have a way of building relations in one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. Brigham?
My name is Brigham Vaughn. I write contemporary gay, lesbian, and polyamorous romance. And I've been published for about 6 years. So I have building quite a collection of stories among those genres. And I'm just now expanding into a little bit of kink in with my romance. So that's been fun to explore.
Cool. Frank?
Hi, I'm Frank Butterfield, and I write gay fiction, mystery, adventure, thriller, and romance, kind of all thrown in together. All my stories happen in one universe, and it's mostly about couples and how they deal with each other and what they do and all that good stuff. I've just finished my 75th title, and I'm hopefully going to finish the 76th one before I have to, throw in the towel anyway. But I'm glad to be here and happy. Oh, by the way, little ching ching, little champagne.
Go for it.
Thanks for asking me to be here.
Sure. And I'm Gail Z and Morgan Brice. As Gail, I write epic fantasy, urban fantasy, steampunk, and more. But as Morgan Brice, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. And that brings us back to the whole idea of love. Now, I know we have a couple of people who do have Valentine's Day themed stories. Let's start with that and kind of, get that out there. Hank, tell us about yours.
Yep. Thanks. So I have a shared universe with Brigham. Actually, we write stories set at the same hotel, which is kind of weird, but it's a hotel. It's a fictional hotel in upstate New York, and it usually gets snowed in, and so that's where a lot of the romance comes in. So one of my stories is kind of a spin-off from the original story for that series. The series is called the Williamsville Inn series, and my first book that started it all was Snowflakes and Song Lyrics, which was kind of a sweet rom-com. And then the best friend of that main character has his own story called The Cupid Crawl. And it's a bar crawl that happens on Valentine's Day. And they go to 6 different bars and a lot of crazy stuff happens. So
what else would you like to do on Valentine's Day besides
Exactly.
Cool. Frank, you said you had a Valentine's story as well.
Right. I have a short story called Valentine's Day 1951. It's in my Nick and Carter series, and Nick is a millionaire, but he's also a private detective, and his husband is Carter, who's a fireman. And when it comes around to Valentine's Day, Carter basically says, there's not really anything I want. So Nick tries to get really very inventive about what to do, and he overhears Carter say something about this other guy at the fire station, and Nick, being a private detective, decides to investigate, and he ends up kind of solving a little bit of a dilemma that's been plaguing the fire station and one of the firemen and their family, and it turns out to be a fun little romp. So it was the first short story I ever wrote, and it's probably my favorite one.
Anybody else out there with a Valentine's adjacent? Okay, Brigham.
Yes, set in the same universe as Hank, the Williamsville Inn series. The first book features one couple, Seth and Eric, and then the next book in the series is Seth's brother, Adrian. He's helping Seth move in with Eric. And when he shows up, he discovers that his brother's roommate is none other than the guy who he hooked up with for a weekend at a baking conference and then ghosted on. And it's called the Cupcake Conundrum because, well, partly because Hank came up with a Cupid crawl and I had to figure out with another title that would work with that. But in the Valentine story, Adrian owns a bakery, and the guy he ghosted on is a pastry chef, and it's all about them figuring out their past and getting a second chance at love. And it all wraps up on Valentine's Day at the bakery with a very romantic gesture. So it was a lot of fun.
Cool. And my Valentine story is Cover Me. It's for free on Prolific Works, and it brings together two long lost lovers from World War II after 70 years. So it's kind of sweet, and of course they're dead, but it's the thought that counts, and they define because they're ghosts. Of course they do. So now that we've gotten the actual Valentine's Day stuff out of there, okay, everybody here writes romance, but do you actually like Valentine's Day? Come on, fess up. Love it, hate it?
I hate it. I am very much anti Valentine's Day for myself personally, but that's just my personal thing. I also not real big on birthdays and holidays, but I love to write about holidays. In fact, I've written about 25 of them. So, but it's a lot different when you're writing than when you're living it. So,
dude, anytime that there's an excuse for cake, I'm there.
Chocolate. My husband and I have been
cake.
Married for like 35 years, and we dated before that. So, you know, anniversary, Valentine's Day, it's sort of a, hey, thanks for doing the dishes. Yeah, thanks for taking out the garbage. Yay, happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I hated it growing up, but I loved it. I love it now. I hated it growing up when I was a kid, with just the whole thought of it in school with all the cards, despised it. But once I found him, it got a little better.
All right, Clay, are you a big romantic?
Me? No. Far from it. But I like it in the same way I like sort of like New Year's Eve. It's sort of a stock taking holiday where you can think about broader issues and where you are in your life. I mean, I don't know. That's how I've always kind of thought of it. When I don't think about it much until it's there, and then when it's there, it's really important. And then when it's gone, it's gone. You know, not like Halloween. Halloween is, everything. But Valentine's Day means something, at the moment.
Yeah, we really like it. Like I said, we're foodies. Now, granted, a lot of the restaurants have a price fix sort of situation. So, my husband could be a chef, so it's great. So that's one of those nights where he cooks, or if we do go out, and it's great if it falls with President's Weekend, because usually we would go out of town, right? We're actually really close to Half Moon Bay, and there's a Ritz-Carlton over there that does this massive brunch. And when there's Valentine's Day, it's Valentine's weekend, they have a whole room, like bedroom size, that's nothing but desserts. Chocolates, little cakes, little, shots of different kinds of, liquid. Like, it's just great. And it's a lot of fun. And that's only like 25, 30 minutes from us. So even if we don't do something, that weekend, that's that Sunday that we would normally do. And it's so much fun, and it's tasty, and you get to sit there and look at the coast and the water. So
Our favorite pizzeria has a heart-shaped pizza that they
Yeah.
special that they'll do.
Angela, any thoughts on the subject?
Yeah, for us, Valentine's Day is a little bit different because, like you said, cake, anytime, any place, I'm there. But my husband is a Marine, and he was in Afghanistan on one of our first Valentine's Days. And so he knows it as Bloody Valentine's Day. It was a really bad situation. So we I kind of keep it low key. We do chocolates for the kids and all the discount chocolate the day after, of course. But we don't do a whole lot. Sometimes we do go out to eat, but that's about it.
Yeah, we've been married for a long time, and we're also fairly practical. And so the whole fixed price menus and all that, we usually stagger when we go to, there's a fondue place that we like that we only go to on Valentine's Day. But we want to pick from the whole menu, not just their, whittled down, more expensive menu for Valentine's Day. So we usually go a week early, a week late, and then, and along with the practicality is, roses from Trader Joe's. Hey, beautiful roses. And do you believe I got this bunch for $7.99? I mean, that just makes it even sweeter.
ironically, if that's the same fondue place I'm thinking about there, that was one of my husband and I's first dates, like 25 years ago.
So anybody have a great, doesn't have to have happened on Valentine's Day, but a story that either you or your characters had, either of a fantastically romantic date or one that just failed catastrophically with good intentions?
A story about my parents that I just learned after my mother passed. I pulled out this picture of her looking at, she's a Chinese woman. She was thin and in this long gown. She looked fantastic. And I was like, I have never seen this picture before. Why haven't we seen that? And my dad looked at it and said, oh yeah, that night. And I was like, what? Well, it was a Valentine's night and he was trying to be chivalrous and she was gorgeous and they got a picture taken, and that's, with the old camera and film. But it was raining, so he decided to scoop her up and carry her to the car so she wouldn't get her feet wet. And he tripped and it was splat in the mud and the gown was ruined and it was bad. And apparently and so she put the picture away and never saw it again until, 50 years later.
Anybody else for
I have one. So when my husband and I got engaged, we were young, we were like 19. So I went to an antique shop and picked out a ring that I wanted. And it was pretty inexpensive, but still expensive for us. So he had to put it on layaway. And he was supposed to go and pick up the ring, and then we were going to go out on a date. And I wasn't supposed to know that he was going to pick up the ring. So I don't remember how I found out. Anyway, I knew. So that night, the whole night, I kept waiting for this ring to appear, right? Because he's officially going to ask me now. And it never happened. He never gave it to me. So that night, as I was going to sleep, I was like, gosh, where's my ring? And I fell asleep. And then I woke up the next morning to him head to toe in dress blues with the ring, being all romantic. And he asked me to marry him and I said yes. And then he goes, now get downstairs. My mom wants to take a picture. 6:00 in the morning.
Were you still
awesome
dramas with bedhead?
Oh yeah. I should find the picture. I'm not sure what happened to it. I might have burned them all, but
you were talking about finding a picture of your parents. My parents were the World War II generation, and I don't know that this happened on Valentine's Day. I know that their first date, they went to see the movie Casablanca because it had just come out in theaters.
Wow.
Which is, an all-time favorite, just one of the most romantic movies ever. But they also, one of their early dates, they went to this, this was in central Pennsylvania. There's a place called Skytop that was a dance hall back like they did in the 1940s, where swing bands would come and you could, dance and all this. And years later, when I was going to grad school at Penn State, Mom and Dad hadn't been in that area for a long time. And we were coming over the hill and Dad said, this is where we had one of those first dates. We went to Skytop and we had a great evening. Well, then been back in like 50 years, and Skytop was not only no longer a place for live music and dancing, it had turned into a XXX adult movie venue. And it was like, you took Mom to a shady movie place. What, you get a little room too?
Let's get a booth, baby.
So yeah, obviously, before you tell your kid all about your great date, make sure the venue hasn't changed. Never let them live that one down. Yeah, and you took Mom to a skeevy little place for your first day. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like, yeah, I'm sure it wasn't. Mm-hmm.
Skytop's a good name for both of those places, though. I mean,
Yes.
it fits.
Clay and I got married in Edinburgh and at Greyfriars Kirk. And while we were there, we were getting ready for the ceremony, and he's not an usher, he's like not an altar boy. What was he? Anyway, he came. One of the people at the church came running out, going, "Oh, you're gonna love this. There was we just discovered a mass grave next door." Yeah. And Clay's going, "What? Really? I need to know all about it." I'm like, "It's the wedding," and he's like, "No, there's bodies everywhere. I need to know." And
one does,
yes, as one does. And
there were Covenanters. They were in one of the graves in Greyfriars. They had dug up they found a bunch of bones, and we never got to see it because we had to get married. But we were lucky that guy was there, actually, because he was a young dude, and I think he was on work release from prison or something. But he clearly had been out the night before with the lads. And we got married on a Saturday morning at like 9 a.m. because that's when we could get to church. And he looked it. He was a nice guy, but
very nice.
he clearly had come straight from the pub to work that morning.
But he enjoyed telling Clay stories.
Nice.
That story is so on point for you two.
It is.
Did that work its way into a book? That should be in a book.
Well, not that specifically, but Greyfriars certainly did. We have a whole series about Greyfriars.
I think one of ours was, and not food related, and I'm not sure if it was exactly Valentine's, but thereabouts, our junior year of college. Senior year? Maybe senior year. It kept snowing, and this was in North Carolina. Gail, you might remember it. There was a season where it just snowed, like there was 15 inches. That doesn't happen, right? And we're at Carolina, and we had the visiting basketball team was in already, and this was before students had much seating area around the lower part of the Dean Dome, and so but they couldn't, the season ticket holders couldn't get there because there was 2 feet of snow, but 2 feet of snow. And so, they said anybody with a student ID can get in to the game. And I think it was Maryland, and they were good at that time too. And, we got in, and they made us go upstairs first. And then they were like, about 5 minutes before the game, at this time, we'd like to invite. And my husband, who looks like a football player, played offensive line in high school, was just massive. Whoa. Right? With a hand. And we were down, third row or so at the Dean Dome, which is the closest we ever got for a Carolina basketball game. We're both big fans. And so that was kind of a nice holiday. It was a good date.
Frank, Hank, Brigham, got a story there? Can be characters, if not you.
In the book I was telling you about earlier, the cupcake conundrum, Adrian has this bakery and it's doing well, but he really, really wants to kind of take it to the next level. So he sweet talks his brother Seth into promoting the bakery on social media, because Seth is a travel writer and he does a lot of write-ups and he has this huge social media following. So Adrian makes these fancy cupcakes, and the picture that Seth posts goes totally viral, and all of a sudden the bakery is swamped, and he cannot keep up with all of the orders that are coming in on Valentine's Day. So he's desperate. He's, just about to lose it. And in walks Jay, who is a pastry chef who has come to Pittsburgh to confess his love and admit he was wrong for letting him go, and that he's forgiven him for his past mistake. And so he sweeps in and helps him make 10,000 cupcakes and saves the bakery and saves the day. And they have their very sweet romantic kiss in the bakery, which is just perfect for them. So I thought it was kind of a fun, sweet little sweet.
How about you, Hank? Oh, go ahead, Frank. Go ahead.
Well, my favorite romantic story in any of my books actually happens in the very first one. It's kind of the denouement of the story and sets up the entire series. So it takes place at the top of the mark in San Francisco, and it's 1953. And the main character is Nick and Carter. They've been together for, now I'm gonna have to do math, 7 years, but they're setting these other two guys up, Ben and Carlo. And so they're having this nice dinner at the top of the mark, sitting in the window, looking out over the city. And 2 or 3 tables away is George Hearst and his brother, Patty Hearst's father, who are there. And they're at the time they're the publishers of the Examiner, which is one of the big papers in the city. And Nick gets up and kind of walks over and tells George Hearst off for having basically been homophobic in the paper in lots of different ways. And basically it's like, stop selling papers on our back kind of thing. And, it's this big, huge scene, and all these people are there and see it. And he walks away and walks over to the bar, and Carter follows him and stops him and then turns him right on the dance floor and kisses him in 1953 at the top of the mark. And I just love, every time I love, every time I reread that, I'm like, that's just
like a Torchwood moment.
Exactly. Very much so. Yes. And just about as fantastical. So yeah, definitely.
Cool. Hank, how about you?
I've been rereading my series that I wrote. It's a humorous paranormal series called Critter Catchers. And it's about 2 best friends that open an animal control business, and of course end up dealing with werewolves and swamp monsters, as as one does. And they're best friends, and one of them has been dating women all this time, and the other one's been gay, and they've slowly come to realize that they belong together. And so in the 4th book, they finally get together. But Cody, who was the until that time straight member of the couple, has kind of messed up. They've gotten together in the previous book, but he's kind of been messing up, not been admitting to people that they're a couple. And so they go to the bar, their local bar in their small town in Pennsylvania, which is fictional. But and then Cody plays a song that Demetrius likes, which is "Holding Out for a Hero," Bonnie Tyler, because 80s, that's when I grew up. And then he has all of his ex-girlfriends there at a table that have been talking to Demetrius and saying that, he dated us, and he might have been with us, but you've always had his heart. And so then Cody starts playing the song and dances over to him, and they share a kiss in front of everybody finally. So everything's out in the open. So I had a lot of fun writing that. And I just reread that and I was like, oh, I wrote that. Oh.
So I'm hearing a lot of different ways to show love and romance. What are some of your favorite ways in real life or with your characters to show that you love somebody? It doesn't have to be on Valentine's Day or fancy cards or chocolate, but it certainly can.
Cooking.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. Cooking.
Yep.
I actually, many years ago, had an epiphany when I realized that my husband, he obsessively, before I travel anywhere and before the current health situation, I went to a conference every month pretty much, and I usually drove. but he's obsessively checking and the tire pressure in all my tires. And it was just
Yeah.
his thing. It's, you're driving tomorrow, I'm going to
Yeah.
inflate your tires. And
Aw.
it took me a while, had to grow up enough to understand that no, that is a true and honest expression of love. It's wasn't a dozen flowers, but you know what? That was ended up being more practical and helpful. So, you know, my car maintenance is top notch.
It's important.
I think for me, you know, those little moments of, hey, I saw this and I thought about you, are one of those really big things for me. And, you know, not even just in romantic relationships, but in friendships, you know, showing that you've been on my mind. I pay attention to the things you're interested in. You know, this relates to a conversation we had recently, and I haven't forgotten that. Like, just those little reminders that you are in that person's brain and that you matter enough to them to make that effort, you know, in the middle of their day to say, hey, here's this link to this article about this, you know, movie I thought you'd like, or here's this, you know, recipe you might enjoy making, or just, you know, just those little reminders that you're on their mind. That to me means a lot. That's romantic.
Yeah, I think ours are generally cooking food related, but like two specific instances are, you know, my husband's been working from home, which is not normal. He's a scientist. But he, you know, he normally would go and have an espresso at their, you know, every afternoon, like after, I don't know, about 3 or 4 o'clock after conference calls. And so like I now bring him, you know, his espresso in the afternoon. But then two, what he does, so like I said, we're from North Carolina. I am from Western, he is from Eastern. We have differences of opinion about barbecue sauce. But ironically, I'm the one from the Western part, and I like the vinegar sauce, and he's from Eastern, but he likes the slightly sweeter sauce. But whenever he makes barbecue, he makes both of the sauces, and both of the slaws. Because one of us likes red slaw, and one of us likes creamy slaw. And so, but you know, that's just, you know, we never go through both of it, all of it. But it's nice that he does that.
Barbecue is very important when it comes to love. Very important.
Yes. Yeah. We're on our third smoker. It keeps things going.
For my husband and I, it's all about the laughter. It doesn't matter what's happening or how bad things get. We can always make a joke. And that's always been super important to us. But to stay on theme, I do want to mention when my husband was in the Marines, we lived in Jacksonville, North Carolina. And there was this pretzel shop in the mall that made the best soft pretzels. And now we live up in New Hampshire, and there's nothing like that around here.
Was it Kate's or Ann's?
No.
Kate's. Oh,
no, we have Ann's and we have Kate's up here, or it might have been Kate's, but Ann's we have, and it's not the same. But but he learned how to make those pretzels for me.
That's awesome.
Aw.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing
awesome.
ever.
That's what that was part of the barbecue when we moved out to California. It was like, we didn't last long without a smoker. I was like, no, we need the barbecue and the proper barbecue.
Clay and Susan? Anything to jump in on?
Back when we were, not even when we were dating, we dated for a long time before we got married, like long, 20 years.
Just felt like 20 years to you.
But he used to write like short stories for me, which were always romantic stories,
Oh,
oddly
cute.
enough, which I never suspected of him. It was always, you know, he was always such a horror guy. So when he would write stories, suddenly there was romance in them, and they were always like surprising to me. Like, you're writing there's a love story in here, and I would get like much more excited about it because I was like, oh, you know, horror. Oh, love, romance, I'm in. And so he always used to do that. I missed that, hint, hint. But it's the little gestures, like others were saying. To me, that's, you know, if you take the time to do something important, Clay's a gentleman through and through. So it took me a while to appreciate that he would open doors for me and that he would help want to carry things. And You know, I'm from upstate New
You
York.
just have to wrestle stuff away from her.
Yeah. We were trained to be very independent, but now I love it. I want him to walk, you know, hold my hand. I want him to open the doors for me, and to me, that's a gesture of caring about me and protecting me, and I don't mind that at all now.
I was going to say my daughter and her new husband, because of work situation, are in different states right now. And she told me that every night, because Google Hangouts is free, they both put up a Google Hangout. They get on the same Google Hangout, put like an iPad next to their bed, and they sleep together on Google Hangout.
Oh.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think, we've been married now 33 years. And I think the things that really say I love you is taking the garbage out in the rain. Because
Ooh, yeah.
you know how much the other person hates taking the garbage out, whether it's raining or not. And cooking, always cooking. We were just out of college and broke when we started dating. And so he couldn't afford to take me out for dinner, but he cooked a really, really good dinner. And that just impressed the heck out of me. And I'd never had anybody cook for me before. And so those kinds of things, they're not flashy, and they're not usually what they do in a Hallmark movie. Oh, look, he took the garbage out for you. But, he took it out for you because he knows how much you hate taking the garbage out in the rain. And that counts more than just taking the garbage out. So yeah, it's the little things that really matter, even though they're not the grand, spectacular Hallmark gesture.
I think the gestures that we've had with our characters that have been more successful romantically, and I'm sure we used to do them in real life, although the longer you're together, the less it is necessary, if you wait till I'm finished, you'll see that it makes sense. Is to show the other person something that's important to you. Our characters often will bring, their significant other in at the beginning of a relationship and show them something that has meant something in their life that, one, lets the reader understand the character, and two, shows them being vulnerable. Because we've had times in the books where the other person doesn't understand the significance of it, and it's almost as if they're making fun of it, and it hurts. So to show that vulnerability by allowing this other person to see something that's really important to you is important in real life, but we've done that with our characters as well, and with good success.
You're talking about the library scene.
Yeah, primarily the library scene in Greyfriar.
Which you can always show love through a book, a gesture of a book, which he does quite often. I used to get nothing but book gifts or story gifts, so to me that's a huge thing.
Yeah, I've got a book coming out.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying I've got a book coming out in May, and I love it because it's a 14-year friendship that develops into love. So best friends to lovers. But you really, one of the first scenes is from early on in their friendship when they're not even really friends, but one of the characters is having, a bad moment, and Kane tells him kind of the explanation for something. He eats these Werther's candies constantly. But he explains how, it used to be pinwheels and like the worst moment of his life, and how, a sense memory triggered, he can't have peppermint now, but he drink, he has these caramel candies. So he switched to caramel, and it kind of helps Holt get out from his situation. And then, 14 years later, he can't, or I guess that's 10 years later, he can't be there for a big event. Holt can't be, but he sends a candy dish.
Yeah.
Like an inscribed candy dish with something from where they used to be together, right? And it's like that means something to them, and it keeps going.
Yeah, it's a really effective callback and a
Yep.
touchstone for developing characters.
Yep.
Yeah, my character's grand gesture generally happens when one of them is about to die, usually being killed by some kind of paranormal bad guy, as one does. You know, and then it's a real question of, well, nice grand gesture, but are you going to live through it? Can we actually do something with this? And there's suspense.
I have a similar situation, except it's usually a serial killer.
Mm-hmm. One of mine was, yeah.
Yeah.
And Frank, I'm intrigued. Most of yours are period pieces, different time periods. Does that change how Valentine's Day plays out or what's considered romantic?
Well, that's a good question. I was kind of thinking about that earlier today. It does to a certain extent in the sense that because these are so most couples that these guys would know would be going out to dance, like your parents, for example. Mm-hmm. But they can't do that. Well, they can sort of do that, like in San Francisco, they can do it. But I have a series that's set here in Daytona Beach, and they certainly can't do that. So they have to kind of work around, like try to figure out how to be romantic. In fact, I was thinking about the characters I have here, who are they're in the late 40s. And how they're romantic with each other. They have to be really careful about what they're doing, but at the same time, they have these little intimate secret things that they do that allow them to show each other how much affection they have between the two of them. And they're really small things, but they're really meaningful. And a lot of that's a lot of fun to write about. The like kind of the Doris Day song, Secret Love. Mm-hmm. It's that kind of theme. In terms of like, we can't really be big and demonstrative, but we can be really affectionate and make it very clear.
I'm reading a book right now, Ali Theron's Wonderstruck, and the two characters. It's right after, I think it's right after World War I, maybe World War II. But they're in Manhattan, and they're separated for 4 months, and there's postcards. And the language that they have to use in the postcards, but knowing what the message really is, it's swoony. Like it's great because it's a gay couple and they can't, a postcard, anyone can read it, any of the mail coming in, and so it can't be demonstratively and clearly what it is, but there's just they're coded, and it's super romantic.
I had to do that with one of my stories where one of the guys was in the Navy during World War II, and he was trying to write a letter to his ex, basically saying, I now realize how much I really love you and all that sort of thing, and had to be able to send it not only to get through the censor, but also like to not out himself eventually. Yeah. And that it was a lot of fun to write it because it had, really the creativity required was amazing. And I wish I could say, that I wrote like that myself, but I felt very inspired by him. And I can only imagine how many people were doing that, like a postcard, like you say, but writing letters in the military.
In Cover Me, one of the characters is a pilot in World War II, and the other character was 4F. He couldn't go. But his sister knew that the pilot and her brother were in love with each other. And so she was willing to cover for him. And they were twins and had names that started with the same initial. So the pilot would write his loving letters to letter J, and address them to her. And she, of course, would pass them to her brother because, she was willing to support them and protect them. And so that's how they got around it, because ostensibly he was writing to a woman, and that was their cover. And so it got past the censors, and it still protected them, but it got to the right place. Yeah, that's a real hardship.
I remember being in high school and sending a letter to my sort of boyfriend, and I put the stamp on upside down because that means I love you. My mother was Chinese and a little bit of a perfectionist, and it was not proper to put a stamp on a letter upside down. And she's like, no, you need to do another envelope, and you wasted a stamp. And I'm like, no, this is why. And she's like, why would you, it's upside down. And I'm like, no, it's fine. And finally she found out. And then that was a whole nother problem because why are you sending love letters to a boy?
Well, folks, believe it or not, we are almost at the top of the hour. So I want to give everyone a chance to talk about what's your newest book or most recent book or upcoming book, and then where we can find you on social media. And I'm going to go around backward, at least on my screen, and start with Susan and Clay.
We're still in the process of writing our stuff. We've got a couple of individual stuff, and we've also got a book that we're writing together. Based in New York City, the nightclub era, right before World War One, World War II. Sorry, brain is it's 10 o'clock at night, getting past my bedtime, and so we're working on that. And right now, you can find us on Twitter at Clay and Susan, and on Facebook, of course. You can find us individually or together. And you can find us at www.clayandsusangriffith.com and get excerpts and links to all the books.
Cool. Brigham?
My next project is set in Michigan, which is where I live. I'm creating a little universe called Pendleton Bay, and it's kind of a little fictional town, kind of like Saugatuck or Holland, or that whole area, South Haven, that area of Michigan. And it's your typical small town romance, but there's going to be 3 different series within that. And the first book coming out in that will be in the series Kinky in Pendleton, which will be about BDSM or kink, but with a very strong romance theme. And the book is coming out on February 11th. It's called Date in a Pinch. It's about 2 teachers. One of them gets a very awkward delivery to the school. He accidentally orders something that's a little bit naughty and clues the other teacher in, who he's had a big crush on for years, that he is into the same thing he's into. So they end up kind of exploring together, and it's supposed to just be, friends with benefits sort of thing. But of course they fall in love, and they end up at the town Valentine's Day festival. And one of the guy's moms ropes them into the couples game show quiz, like Hollywood. What is it called?
The Newlywed Game?
Yes, the Newlywed Game. Thank you, Hank. You were one of the ones who suggested I do that. And that's when they have their big moment of realizing they're actually in love with each other. So it is very fun. It's Date in a Pinch. It'll be out on the 11th. And you can find me pretty much anywhere on social media under Brigham Vaughn. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I'm author B Vaughn on Twitter, and all of my books are available on Amazon and in Kindle Unlimited. So
cool. Frank?
I've got a new book coming out, hopefully, fingers crossed, within the next few days, called The Biker Who Got Bumped Off. It's a Daytona Beach series book, and it's a legal procedural with a lot of romance in it, believe it or not, that involves a murder that happens right in the middle of Bike Week 1948, which was the big Bike Week. That was the year that Bike Week became what it is now, for those who know what that is. And there's 2 kind of rival gay bike gangs, except nobody would have used any of those words to describe them. They're just 2 groups of guys traveling around the country on motorcycles, using their used leftover surplus Harleys that they got, from the government. And push comes to shove, and one of them ends up dead, and one of them ends up having killed them, but who killed whom is not really clear. So it's a lot of fun. And you can find me at frankwbutterfield.com. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, but if you go to my website, you can see all my books and everything. I'm on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited as well.
Cool. Angela?
My next book is due out in May, and it's In the Dead of the Night. It's about a woman whose daughter was kidnapped from her bed. It takes place 10 years after the fact, when she's trying to move on, falls in love with a rock star, and a woman shows up on her doorstep claiming to be her daughter, and she has to figure out where her daughter really is and who this woman is.
Okay.
And you can find, sorry.
I was going to say, find you.
You can find me at angelabreen.club.
Okay. Hank?
My most recent book that just released is called Fake Date Flip Flop. And it was set in the Williamsville Inn series. And it's a mature, so they're about late 40s, and it's kind of a rom-com fake date situation, so that one's kind of fun to write, and that's available now. And then I'm working on some more Williamsville Inn stories. I'm hoping to do Independence Day. I want to do a Halloween story and another Christmas story, but we'll see. So we got a lot of stuff planned for this year, and you can find me at hankedwardsbooks.com, and I'm also on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I don't do Twitter very much. It's like a lot of shouting to me. And Instagram.
Very nice. Kathy?
Well, you can find me at kathylyons.com. If you search under Jade Lee, you have to add the author, because no lie, Jade Lee is a rather famous porn star. I didn't know that when I took the name. So it's jadeleeauthor.com. I have books coming out. I have a historical series, Lords of the Masquerade, that's coming out this year. And this is my Where Geeks Save the World, or the first one is Where Geeks Save Wisconsin. Basically, it's the cast of The Big Bang Theory accidentally turn into werewolves and have to save the world and fall in love, and it's geeks and werewolves, and it's a ton of fun. And if you go to my website, I'm on all the social media, and the links are all there, and my books are there, and you know.
Yep. So March 8th is Queen's Ransom. It's book 4 in the Fog City series. It features Helena and Celia. So it is a lesbian romance assassin queen and a single mom mechanic, kind of a bodyguard and opposites attract tropes in there. And then May 3rd is the long-awaited Holton Kane book, Silent Night. It's book 5 in Fog City. Like I said, it's the one I was talking about before, the best friends to lovers, 14 years of pining, that finally gets its due. So I'm excited about that one. And it's a cop and a digital assassin, so they really shouldn't, but they're going to. And I'm at Layla Reyne on all the platforms, and www.laylareyne.com.
Nice. And of course, you can find me at morganbrice.com and on all the platforms as either Gail Z Martin and Morgan Brice, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of those. And I've got a story coming out in a multi-author boxed set, and I can't give the name of that just yet, but it'll be coming out sometime in the March-April area, and it'll be set in my Fox Hollow. My story will be set in my Fox Hollow world, and it involves goat shifters. And it is a truly swoopy love story, especially with a fainting goat and Baphomet, as one does. And then I've got another story that is also in a multi-author shared world, and that is the Magical Emporium series that is already starting to come out. And mine is the very last one by design. And that will also be a Fox Hollow story. So set in my kind of shifter, anything can happen here, paranormal area. So thank you all for coming and playing here tonight, and for sharing all your Valentine champagne dreams and all of those things. And thank you folks for watching and being with us. Stay tuned. There'll be a lot more romance here on Continual.
I'm trying to do the heart, but it's not.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks. We'll see you online.
Thank you.
Thanks.